he knows him. He's in for Cleveland. There's a long ball downfield and terrific cover for the ball is caught. And Kosar, long ball is going to go for a touchdown. The game's over. Tomczak, and that's tipped and fouled.
Hey teammates, welcome to another episode of It's All About the Team, and we are so blessed today to have two of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game of football. Tomczak and Bernie Kosar. Welcome, troops.
But really, my best growth, my life lessons came in my mistakes or failures. But if you don't get better.
Because between the three of us college quarterbacks, we have 28 years in the NFL. Just so happens you have 16 and you have 12, I have 0. But still,
You're never as good as you thought you were, but never as bad as you thought you are.
The trophies are trivia questions. The lessons last forever.
Hey, good to be with you, Lieutenant Governor Coach.
Oh man, I tell you, we're going to have fun today because between the three of us college quarterbacks, we have 28 years in the NFL. Just so happens you have 16 and you have 12, I have 0. But still, we were three college quarterbacks, and some of us didn't get to enjoy, and so all of our viewers know who you are, but they don't really know how we've grown up together, because we kind of grew up together. I grew up in coaching as you guys grew up in playing, and then as we've gone on to the next chapters of our lives, we've grown up in trying to help people, at the next chapter and the next level. And so let me just give a quick introduction. Mike Tomczak, I got to meet in 1983, became his quarterback coach, and he was coming off of his sophomore year as a starter, and we got to have him go into that junior and senior year and do spectacular things at Ohio State. And then I got to admire his NFL career. And then Bernie and I tried to recruit Bernie to Syracuse, and it didn't work out. I've probably lost more recruits than I've gotten. He ended up a Hurricane, national champion, and then he came back to our hometown of Cleveland. And the first thing we did when we took over the Youngstown State program, we began the tradition of Youngstown State youth camps beginning on Father's Day, because I knew Bernie would be coming home on Father's Day, and so he was my draw. They didn't know who I was, but they knew who Bernie Kosar was, and so that's when our relationship started, and it's been a blessing with both of you.
What a great synopsis of that. You're making us feel old right there with that.
Well, we are old. Yeah, we're old, but it beats the alternative, and so I want to kind of, a lot of times we take people through their lives and talk about the lessons they learned about how to be a teammate and, have them think back to their teams and so forth. But I'm going to fans love winning. And you've both been on Super Bowl champions, okay? And so I want you to share with the audience, as you think back to your Chicago Bear championship team and your Dallas Cowboy Super Bowl championship team. I'll start with you, Michael. What made that Chicago Bear team have a chance to reach their potential and be the Super Bowl champs?
It's pretty simple. It's all about the team. And in our Super Bowl ring, TEAM is embroidered in the ring, which Mike Ditka just talked about daily. If not before the game, after the game, he always talked about team. And I think it just resonates with me because all the people started to believe that. I was a rookie going into a team that was starting to become champions, play together. The Chicago Bears history prior to that was, pretty meek. I don't think they made the playoffs that often. They had a number of coaches, and they finally got the right coach. But from day one, those that will stay will become champions. And Bo Schembechler said that. Mike Ditka replicated that, and it became very true. Each person had to be accountable. I was a young rookie free agent, just happy to get a chance being from Chicagoland. But walking into that locker room, you knew there was a vibe. You felt it. And all the championship teams, high school, college, and even the pros, that was the theme. It didn't have to be echoed, but when it was echoed, it kind of emphasized the point of, it's not about me, it's about us. And the greatest example I can give is being in the huddle. Being in a huddle, JT, Bernie, as you know, in your playing days, that's the greatest feeling to go in there and say, hey, my man, I need a half a more second. This is a big 3rd and 8 play. This is going to change the complexion of the game. And I just love that environment. I was born for that. I came out of a ball bag. My dad was a high school football coach, and I just grew into that role, knowing that you are the commander-in-chief when you get in that huddle. So it goes back to the team concept with Mike Ditka. My dad exemplified that. Earl Bruce did as well. And also Bill Cowher was another one that. And not to you say that you never made it in the Super Bowl with the Cleveland Browns, but you guys got as far as you can get. And it was a great team atmosphere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's not lose sight of one thing, and teammates, you heard him say that Mike Ditka talked about it every day. And that's where, sometimes people want to cover something once and think that it's ingrained in it. And I think what you said to me, the operative statement you said was Mike Ditka and his staff and the veterans talked about it every day. So whether it's in your business, in your family, in your nonprofit organization, talk about the importance of team every day. What made the Dallas Cowboys in '93 so special?
As we sit here today and I think about kind of the premise of the podcast and some of the team and life lessons that we're talking about, and then as I hear you, Mike, talk about the team and stuff, and sitting here on a cool podcast, I would love to keep it at top level and just talk about the 1983 National Championship, the 1993 Super Bowl in between. Thank you for saying we had some good Browns teams, but almost like when we were playing football, you maybe have 65 plays in a game. You get 60, 62 pluses. What you think, that's an A in school. But we obsess on the 3 negatives, the 5 negative plays, the things that don't go your way, and that's what optimizes, hopefully, our performance and stuff. So I kind of like to learn my life lessons from some of the moments, because it's kind of, I don't think you get the best of optimizing yourself sometimes in success and doing the hard things to look at yourself when you made a mistake, when you weren't your best. So like I listen to you guys and daily, I talk about team, talk about doing the right thing, being the best teammate, being in that huddle, being a good leader and stuff. And I really am proud, and not saying this to be cocky, that I believe most of my life I've done that. But really, I reflect a lot on the few times I didn't. And as I sit here today, with you guys and stuff, I can't thank you enough for the Father's Days in the mid-'80s and, how we got started together. But, you've been such an awesome leader to so many people, not just us, but through the state and the country and over the years. But of the threesome at this table, the guy to my left has had such a bigger effect on me from a life lesson perspective. And, I talk about, I'm super proud to have won the championship in 1983. I ended up meeting Mike Tomczak in 1984 at spring break.
Is that right?
Yeah. When he was,
Mama.
yeah, sneaking
way.
when Coach Trussell didn't have him.
Wait, I was going to say you were still...
Yeah, no, we were at
It
college.
was after the season.
Oh, okay.
So we get a chance to meet him then. I'm, it's mentioned an undrafted free agent. I have a nice run in the 80s and stuff, kind of thinking I'm good, other than maybe a John Elway issue I had. But, you end up playing against quarterbacks, and ultimately, when you actually play against them is when you ultimately know, who's better and stuff. And the one time, unfortunately, I did play against Mike Tomczak and the Chicago Bears. He won, so he won the battle of the 80s.
We, the team.
We, the team, but he, the team, replaced Jim McMahon and threw some amazing fades on 3rd and 6 to Willie Gault down the right sideline.
Willie could run a little bit.
Yeah.
Speedy Willie.
Speedy Willie.
Yeah.
Wow.
But to see how Mike played as a player is one thing. Is being, I'm so proud to have played 12 years in the NFL, being from Youngstown, Ohio. But again, to play 16 years in the NFL, it's just a little better, And
10 years as a holder for extra points and field goals that preserved my career. No, but
they're accredited seasons in the NFL, So, you see stuff like that. But when you're a player, okay, and when you're going through it, and for the young QBs out there, you need to believe in yourself. Coach Snellenberger, my football father, to believe is to be strong, to get in that huddle. We got to believe in ourselves. Even if it's a little false enthusiasm, you got to create a belief that you could do it. So at times, it's sometimes hard to admit that maybe I'm not as good a person. Maybe I am a little selfish. Maybe I did make a mistake. I should. It's easy.
But I'm going to work on it.
But I'm going to work on it. I'm going to face
right.
it. And football taught us that. And I pride myself. And I did Mike Tomczak did an awesome job at his football camp a few years ago. And I was trying to do an analogy of this coupled with being team and saying the right stuff. And I always say the right stuff. And most of the time, I almost always act with the way my words to back it up. And I'm super proud of that. But I do, like a football game with 65 plays, 63 are great, I'm obsessing on the 2. And a couple times in my career, it's one thing to play against a quarterback and him to maybe hit 1 or 2 more fades than you and beat you. But you really know about your QB when you're on the same team. You're in the same room.
Yeah.
And I'm 1992 now.
Yeah.
We're on the team. We're on the quarterbacks together.
You're on the same team.
Well, correct. 1992, I was laying in the sofa for 2 weeks. A guy named Brett Favre was traded to the Green Bay Packers. And a dear friend of mine, Jay Hilgenberg, was playing for the Cleveland Browns at the time. And unfortunately, Bernie got hurt on a Monday night. That played an amazing game with a broken ankle. I don't want to take you back that far, but his injury allowed me to come off the sofa and get a tryout with the Cleveland Browns. And I remember going to the indoor Berea camp. You haven't been, I'm sure you've been there, but probably not when you were younger. They didn't have that yet, but I was able to get a tryout on a Wednesday, and they signed me that afternoon and made practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, traveled to Los Angeles to play the Raiders with Todd Philcox at quarterback, and I'm the backup. Don't know who my offensive coordinator is. Everyone raised their hand. Crosby, Richard Mann, Tranquil, Hal Hunter even. But Belichick was ultimate. But anyway, long story short, I made the team and ended up playing that season until Bernie made his rehab and everything. But it was
so you got to be in the same room studying together and planning together?
He was away. He was away for the first couple of weeks, but he came in. He came in, and he was, what a student of the game.
No.
Well, vice versa. And I'm not just saying that be reciprocal in that, but to the life lessons and to the honesty with yourself, and something that's hard to admit and embarrassing to do. But at the time, when you're going through that, and I'm chuckling about coming in with the broken ankle, so not to digress to if they do the stadium and go from downtown to Brook Park, there's if they do an archaeological survey of the landfill, they will find my teeth and bones in the ground there. Right. But to be able, when you're trying, and you are the quarterback, and you're obsessed with playing, and you're obsessed with believing you're the best, and all of a sudden you're hurt, you say you're for the team, you say it's in the best interest. Human nature and selfishness really is hard to deal with. And in the real spirit of me, if I had to be honest with myself, in 2025, I easily could say I was wrong and selfish, and I was thinking about justifying, I'm going to get myself healthy. I'm going to get myself back ready to go because the team needs me. And really, I needed the team. Right. Because when I got into the locker room, and he's very nice about it, and I love Todd Philcox, but after a couple weeks, he picked up the offense, and the team did not need me as much as I thought they did. And that, I acted like they needed me, but really, that bruised my ego. And I couldn't deal with it. And I was not, and that was one of the few times I wasn't a good teammate and wasn't the best friend. Yet he stayed so solid and so committed. And he knew that as a player, I'm going through stuff. And yet he had the emotional sensitivity to personally handle it, well, the professional ability to handle his job, and then unfortunately also handled the system better. And then when I did get healthy, he's too nice, he actually played a little better than me in that system too. Okay.
So he had great compassion for what you were going through, but he knew he had a job to do for the team.
And he had a job to do for the team, but he did it good. And again, just maybe not saying it to be funny, nor just to make up, but you actually did it better than me within that system. And as a quarterback and as a person, it's hard to admit that sometimes you aren't the best, especially when you think you are.
But what a great lesson.
And it's a life lesson. It's affected me. I mean, what I've now done in the last basically 33 years since then is a direct correlation to what happened there. And then, you know, life comes and goes, and you know, I'm a University of Miami guy, and I do You Matter, and I don't do it for the University of Miami. I do it because of self-confidence and self-esteem,
And everyone matters.
and
That's what a team is about.
really matters. And you know, me and Mike started. We were texting back half dozen years ago, and I see Mike writing "You Matter" beforehand, before I even started writing it, and I'm like, and Mike had that same kind of principle, and it just shows you the strength and commitment of him as a person, and it just planted a seed within me. And I wanted to say something like that. One, just for you to hear it, but two, on a podcast like yours, there's life lessons where, again, I want to sit here and talk about all the cool records and the cool games I won. But really, my best growth, my life lessons came in my mistakes or failures, and I don't really enjoy admitting them now. I really didn't enjoy admitting them when they were going on. Sure. But if you don't get better.
Conviction.
You know, it was funny. A month or so ago, we had 97 of our former players from Ohio State that played from 2001 to 2010 to the governor's house. And I wanted the governor to meet some people who were going through life, starting families. Schools were important to them. Property tax was important to them. You know, starting businesses was important to them, and so forth. And I said, Mr. Governor, I think you'd love to hear from this group, and they're great kids, and blah, blah, blah. So they came in, and we had like a 90-minute town hall meeting in the governor's house, right? And not one time did anyone talk about a game we won, a championship we won. All they talked about was the lessons they learned being a part of a team, and they had questions about how can Team Ohio become a better team. And so you're so right. The trophies are trivia questions. The lessons last forever, and that's what it's all about. Let me go back to the Chicago Bears Super Bowl. Give us a teammate that you thought was a difference maker to help that total team reach their potential. Give us just one. I know you had a lot of great teammates, but just give us one. We don't have time to talk about 52 of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon was the unselfish player that was destined to. He was already great in college. He's already having a great, successful NFL career. But he humbled himself to accept me as a teammate to be in that room. From a cerebral standpoint, intelligent, extremely intelligent. He taught me the game like I never saw it before, and the game slowed down tremendously. So I give him a great credit for being a great teammate, humble himself, welcome me into the huddle and the whole group. Jim got injured throughout my career in Chicago. To your point, he was in my corner. I used to go to his house after every home game my rookie year and spend time with his family. And you saw the team concept. You saw him helping out. You know, he might have had ice, might have had a stem machine or something after the game, but his wife Nancy and the kids, they welcome me in. It's like Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike's here and everything. So that, from that standpoint, Jim was just exceptional. The 4 years I played with him, he was in my corner from day one, and what a great guy to be around, what a fun-loving man, extremely authentic. And there's nothing wrong with authenticism. Authenticity really is a true character of a good human being that's willing to give and serve others. And I found that out from him. People have a persona that Jim McMahon Jim McMahon's presence precedes himself. You know, the punky QB and all this stuff and the radical stuff, but he was as real as the day is long. And I just
and that's the
appreciate
lesson.
him.
You know, teammates, great teammates pour in to everyone on the team, especially the ones who are new and need it and so forth. 93 Super Bowl champions. Give us an example of a great teammate.
So that team played hard on the field and off the field. Okay, I love the way that team policed themselves. Like, if you were going to have an issue, the head coach didn't need to break you down. The players policed themselves. And if you did something at night, you were still there at 7 the next morning, on time for your meetings, going completely balls out practice-wise. And to be able to be around that type of professionalism, coupled with that type of aggressiveness, I mean, and that kind of will to win, was dominant.
You know, Mr. DeBartolo always talked about the fact that with those great 49er teams, the best players were really the leaders of the team because they policed, they set the expectations, they poured into, you know, the younger teammates. And so let's flip back to your 1984 Big Ten championship team, okay? Give us an example of a good Buckeye leader you felt on that team. I'm asking these guys to go way back in history, so we might have some pauses here. 1984 is a long time ago. Think of a teammate that and we had a lot of great teammates.
Yeah, we had a lot of great teammates.
But pick one and why.
Just because Jim Lachey is my roommate.
I was just going to say Jim Lachey, man.
Yeah, just because he's my roommate, my loving brotherhood. But, you know, I'm not going to go there because he knows how dear he is to me, and he was for that whole growth throughout college. I'm going to go back to a kid from Salem, Ohio.
That's who I thought you were going to go
Kirk
with.
Laudermilk. Kirk Laudermilk was a tremendous teammate, great leader. When he moved from guard to center, he took charge. And I always thought, and I don't know how you guys feel, but I always feel as if the best offensive lineman is not the left tackle, it's the center. The center has to get, he's a master link for those guys to make everything work.
That's what Paul Brown did. You do know back in history, and I'm way older than you guys, but for
I got my fedora on.
right?
Yeah.
3 straight
Paul Brown
drafts, I think. His last couple with the Browns maybe, and his first one with the Bengals, he always wanted to pick a center first. But go back to Kirk Laudermilk.
Yeah, Kirk Laudermilk. You know, he was a high school state champion wrestler and everything. I remember Glenn Mason had him on a short list, a preferred walk-on, if you will. And then he won the state championship, and Earl said, "Get down there. You make sure you offer him a scholarship."
And it was in March.
It was
in March. It was
yeah.
way after signing.
Yeah.
And you know who he beat that day was someone Dave Crecelius.
Dave Crecelius, yeah.
So we had the top 2 wrestlers in the great wrestling state of Ohio. But we'd already signed Dave. And Earl got after Glenn and said, "Man, you better get down and get that guy signed."
Yeah. Just from a leadership standpoint, he was a guy that was old school. You know, he'd grab you by the throat and get you like, "I need your help right here. You need to be at my hip and everything." And then all of a sudden, you know, the team would start to come together. Back to the down block. Laudermilk was a catalyst because sometimes there wasn't a nose guard, so he really had to come off backside either way. We competed against each other professionally, different teams, Indianapolis, Minnesota, and he always had that smile on his face. He loved the game, but he loved people. And he was a giving individual. I mean, Kirk was the guy
Didn't he play with a broken leg one time?
He did, yes, in college football, absolutely. And speaking of broken legs, we won't go there.
No. The podcast's not that long, but he had a little bit of a broken leg, which we might get to. 83 national champs. Highlight a teammate that was a great teammate and why.
Julio Cortez, number 99. If somewhat of a history lesson with some of the stuff you're doing work-wise these days, the Mario boat lift and Fidel Castro cleaned out his jails in 78 and 79. So there was a big influx of Cuban Americans and Cubans that came into what they call Tent City back in South Florida back in the early 80s. And it was, there was some riots in the streets, there was some issues with that coming on, and that trickled over into the university and into the football team and that. And the University of Miami hadn't really been a very successful team, and it wasn't a very consistent team, and it was kind of a guy named Julio Cortez was the tough guy who integrated kind of the Cuban culture, and it's a beautiful culture and family. And coming here in Ohio, being in the Catholic faith, to see the love that the Cuban community really has for each other, it was beautiful to see that, and to see him with his massive toughness back when football, some of the stuff you would do as coaches was a little bit illegal, that would have you in jail today.
That's right.
But to toughen you up,
Right,
and
sure.
some of the Miami teams of the 80s, really evolved from somebody like that.
Let me give you my Miami story. So I was an assistant for Earl, and I was down in Florida recruiting, and we were trying to get some of the guys that were really good that ended up, this was probably 83-4, and I remember they all met at the McDonald's in Dade County and decided to sign because they were going to make sure that they kept Miami at elite. And that brotherhood, that team thing, and the coaches called their recruiting area the state of Florida. Okay. Or no, excuse me, the state of Miami.
State of Miami.
And they just really recruited from Orlando down.
Orlando South.
Yep. And that's all they recruited, because that team feeling, that not wanting to let down one another. And I remember I was like 0 for 4 in recruiting, because those guys all went to the McDonald's on signing day and signed together because they were going to be a part of the U. And incredible.
You know, Coach Schnellenberger started that rush of recruiting like that, and he believed in the state of Miami from Orlando South, and he said that I need all of my athletes and all of my players to be from the 305, except I go nationally for my quarterbacks.
Right. Well, it's funny. I stole that when I interviewed at Youngstown State in December of '85. I went in and interviewed. They said, well, what are you going to do with recruiting? I said, we're going to create a state of Youngstown. And we're going to have all of our players from within 50 miles, except we've got to go wherever we got to go for a couple of the elite holes that we might have in our thing. But that, you could just feel the sense of team there at that time when you guys were there. It's just that, they were gonna die for one another.
Yeah, and that's actually what really was the impetus for wanting to even say some of the stuff I said earlier in a podcast about you. I really learned core values, core teamwork, the stuff you stand for, the stuff this podcast stands for, the stuff that 98% of my life I think I've stood for, and it's made you think about the couple percent, the couple times when you don't, that you don't live up to the standard that we set for each other, that we expect of ourselves.
Well, on the top of our winner's manual every year with our team, we had, with tradition comes responsibility. And that's what a team is all about. It's that responsibility. And so did we go to the AFC Championship with the Browns 3 straight years, or?
3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. Yeah. So give us a teammate from that run, because, Cleveland was on fire. They had the songs going on. It was a wild time here in Northeast Ohio. Give us a teammate or two that made that time special.
As we sit here today, and the three of us are doing it, and I'm here with like Reggie Langhorne, and you think about tough times and big games and in big moments. And it's kind of easy when you're winning and life's good to kind of go on the bandwagon. But when it's, playing the Jets and you're down 10 and it's minus 20 degrees, or you're playing the Vikings and it's overtime and, you're down to your 8th lineman, and guys are getting frostbite and you're playing on a landfill with spray painted mud.
It sounds like Cleveland and Chicago.
Yeah, it's really set up for a guy who runs a 5.5 40, to have tough guys. And guys like, I came into the league with Reggie Langhorne in 1985. We were rookies together. Caught one of my first touchdown passes. Guys like that in clutch times, making big plays, stand out. And that's, you kind of develop those life memories from that.
We talked about the fact that it's not just the championship teams that taught you team. It's the battles, the times it wasn't quite as good as it could have been or whatever. But really, it starts all the way back at the beginning. So let's go back to Team Tomczak, Calumet City. Dad was the head coach at Thornton Fractional North.
Correct.
Give us the best lessons you learned early on that created that foundation for what team's about, both at home and then at TF North.
Yeah, it takes me back. Calumet City, they used to call it Sin City back in the day. It was on the border of Hammond, Indiana, and Calumet City. And Gary was just to the east, and Chicago was just to the north 20 miles. So it was a tough area growing up. I used to sit in film sessions, the black and white 8mm film sessions after games. And I was 6 years old, 7. You know, we're helping splice the film and everything.
Yeah.
It was tremendous. And I remember my dad would always educate the team before the film. And he would say, "You're never as good as you thought you were, but never as bad as you thought you are. Take the film, be humble, learn from it, and be a better teammate tomorrow." And it really, really sent a message, because not many professions outside of sports you get film to watch and break down. You know, how would you like to have a camera follow you around for 12 hours a day and see what your activity was and how many good deeds you did and how many kindness acts you did and the faults you had, the humility. But back in that era, my dad always had these sayings, you know, that little sayings, you know, the team is better than the me. The team is better than the me, and it resonated with me. It resonated with me at a young age, and to see the guys that were my idols in high school, pretty much what probably you followed up with your dad being at Baldwin Wallace, those guys were my heroes. They could do no wrong, but when they did wrong, I learned from it. And I had an older brother, 13 months older, Ron, was very much the same way. You know, we grew together. We spent a lot of time together around these football players, and those early years was a free education about life, about growth, about expectation, about accountability. You know, without accountability, where are you going to go in life? You know, how many times we are our thoughts. We truly are our thoughts. You look at them. I'm driving out here today, and I looked in the mirror maybe 4 times, and I said, "Who are you? Who are you really? Get down to the bare fact. Get down to the bone." And I've always wanted to, and I think I exemplified it throughout my life, is the act of kindness. And Mr. Rogers, growing up, was very consistent in our household. What a great act of kindness. His middle name is Kindness. My son went to Rollins College. You know, beautiful area, in outside the Orlando, Winter Park, Florida. And Fred Rogers went there. So they have the statue, beautiful statue of him surrounded by all these handicapable kids, crutches, wheelchairs, you know, neck braces, one arm and everything. And it just exemplified. So back to my high school days growing up, it was, what can you do for others? You know, my dad got into the health club business. He serviced 3,000 people a month. You know, his ripple effect around the Chicagoland area was huge. It was huge. The most humble guy you ever want to meet. Worked his tail off, 25-hour day for him in a 24-hour day.
Well, you know, we always say, and we've said on the episodes many times, the greatest thing you can learn from is example. Example. And that's, you know, sometimes we have situations where the young person we're trying to work with didn't have great example. And so that's why I'm a little bit biased toward sport and any group activity, is that can sometimes stand in the gap and give that example. Calumet City, Thornton Fractional North, teammate that you thought was good and why? Now I'm really taking you back. That was 40-some years.
Yeah, that's, wow. Unfortunately, I've lost contact with a lot of my high school teammates because of my movement, different parts. I didn't go back. My parents moved out of Calumet City my freshman year at Ohio State. Unselfishness, I would say growing up, it'd probably be Darius Epperson. Darius Epperson and I played 4 different sports together growing up. He was my star receiver in a wishbone shotgun offense. Imagine that. Having your dad as the head coach. He's sitting around the table, and I've seen him draw plays many times at Oliver's restaurant at 6 o'clock in the morning. And we finally lined up in the wishbone, then we got into the shotgun and everything, and he was ahead of his time. But Darius was unselfish. He was kind. He was just a dear friend. You know, through growing up, you don't always do things right. You know, but Darius would always be the one that kind of brought you back to center. You know, and that's one. You know, I'm grateful for him. I'm sad I lost contact with him, but you take me back now. You know, 50 years now, man.
Team Kosar and Boardman High School in Youngstown.
Yeah, you know, as you're talking about teammates, and you know, it's great questions. It's sometimes tough to maybe single out, maybe just one or two.
One of many examples, right?
So many of them, but you know, as you're talking about whether it's talking to you, thinking coaching-wise, or some of the coaches that had these influences on us, and as you were answering, I could see why I look up to you so much. I get this fixated listening on that. But the life lessons that come out of it, and some of my coaches, like how you do little things is how you do all things, and how, you know, you feel bad for yourself and you get off the ground, and the simple thing of getting tackled and getting up, well, that's the physical act of getting tackled and getting up, but man, the emotional act of failing and getting knocked down and getting up is actually harder than the physical act.
After an interception, when you get the crap knocked out of you,
Right.
that's when you got to go to the sideline. You want to go to the other side and they're celebrating.
Yeah, actually, yeah. So going through things like that, some of the reflecting points of, like Jimmy Johnson had a phrase, let the mind control the body, not the body control the mind. You know, and every day we have a decision, you know, when we get out of bed. You know, do I feel sorry for myself? Do I want to do good today? Do I want to make a difference? You know, I get up every day from some of my high school coaches, from
Coach Pushik.
Coach Gene
Pushik.
Jack Hay,
legendary. He was the quarterback coach, wasn't he?
Quarterback coach. You know, the first guy, you know, back today, you know, everybody's putting nets and, you know, tires to throw to. And, you know, I got into the pros, and Jim Kelly had a golf tournament. We were throwing balls through the tires. I go, Jack Hay had me doing that 6 years earlier, you know. So those kind of being in Youngstown and having coaches that are kind of ahead of the game from a football perspective absolutely helped, but did not know it at the time. They really prepared me for life, you know, and these life lessons, you know, we talk about resiliency and toughness. And
Who was your go-to guy in high school, like a 3rd and 8 or 4th and 12th that you needed to go to?
So
you didn't do a quarterback draw, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the guy who was a 5'5" running 40, we didn't call it the wishbone. We had a little triangle offense back then. But Larry Napolitan.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys threw it a lot.
Yeah, we threw.
In fact, my daughter, I was on the phone with her yesterday, and I was telling her that you guys were coming. And so my one daughter is a Bernie Kosar daughter. She said, you know, I was born the same year he was a senior at Boardman High, and she graduated from Boardman High. Well, then my youngest daughter, Whitney, is a Mike Tomczak guy because she was a Rebel, maybe still is, but she was a Steelers fan. And so when he was with the Steelers, he gave me a jacket. One time he came over and spoke at the YSU clinic, and he gave me the Steelers jacket. And I hung it up in my office, you know, and Mark Brungard was our quarterback then. And he was a big Steelers guy. And he came in and he said, Coach, you don't like the Steelers? Well, where'd you get that? And I said, well, T-Zac, you know, left it here. It was awful nice of him. And he says, well, you ought to give that to me. And we had just won the national championship. And I said, well, look, Mark, if you win it again, you can have the coat, right? So my daughter Whitney came in, and she was probably, 7 years old. And she saw the Steelers jacket. And she said, where'd you get that Steelers jacket? You don't like the Steelers. You're a Browns guy. And I said, well, Mike Tomczak, you know, and so forth. And she said, well, I should have that jacket. And I said, well, look, Whit, I told Mark that if we win the national championship, he could have it. And then she said, well, we'll see who you like better.
Oh, pressure's on.
Pressure's on. Well, we win the national championship again. I had to give it to Whitney.
You should have called me again. I
should have got a second one. I don't want to be greedy.
For the listeners out there, for how Mike Tomczak ended up being a Pittsburgh Steeler and under Bill Cowher was a little known fact. In 1992, he was playing. The Browns were playing the Steelers in Cleveland Stadium, and you threw a post to Michael Jackson off a play action that I'm like, how the hell, excuse my language, how the hell did you know the post was going to be open? He throws like a 55-yard gorgeous post. And I'm like, man, you are better than me in this offense. Cowher knew it too and took him next year.
Is that right?
Yeah, next year.
Yeah.
You were a free agent, huh?
I was. I just signed, a 4-month contract, and
and he had a good game.
I was happy to be back.
Guaranteed money for 4 months.
Yeah, it gave me another 9 years of professional football, getting back into the Cleveland Browns.
So let's go to the Steelers for a minute. You were there 6?
7.
7. Give us a teammate at the Steelers that really was a special teammate, and why?
Yeah. Well, during that run, we won 5 out of 7 AFC Central Division championships, and we had a pretty good run. We had great leadership. Ron Earhart was a great offensive mind. He's the guy that really knew how to run the football. We had a guy named Barry Foster the year before I got there that had close to 1,500 yards rushing or 1,800 yards just running a boss play, back on safety or whatever, the boss.
Back on strong safety.
Yeah. Pinner, and we did a lot of play action off that. So in those 7 years, local guy, Jerry Olszewski was a good teammate, he was
Jerry O, Youngstown Cheney.
He was my bat boy on Sherroll Market, and when I was 10 and 11 years old.
Yeah.
Wow, Jerry O.
I hit him in the head with an aluminum bat by accident.
This is a confessional here today.
Right? Jerry was. I thought Jerry would be.
Sorry, Jerry. Man, I love you, brother.
That he
wasn't on purpose.
Excuse me, but he would be a great Bill Cowher kind of guy. And Jerry was a little bit of a rebel. He did things his way and everything, but he was a tough son of a gun to play against. Dermontti Dawson. He was the Hall of Fame offensive center and everything. And I go back to that center, the center of that whole nucleus of guys that are really going to change the line of scrimmage, that are really going to protect you. It's the huddle. Yeah. And we talk about that. And Bill Curry had a great book, The 10 Greatest Men I Met in the Huddle. And he wrote a book about, the Bart Starr eras and everything, and Fuzzy Thurston next to him, and Max McGee, the great ones, Horning.
Paul Horning, Jim Taylor.
Guys that we can resonate with. I don't know if our listeners know, but there's a great documentary, a small documentary, I'll have to send it to you, Bernie. It's called The Huddle. That Bill Curry narrates about the integration of the black players.
I think you just sent that to me.
Yeah. Integration of the black athletes into professional football and everything, into college football and everything, because he went to the University of Kentucky and he played for Bear Bryant. And then he ends up going with Bear Bryant to Alabama and everything, becomes a head coach. But a great human being. But the center position, it resonates with me because you rely on that snap, whether it be in the shotgun or the center quarterback exchange. Anytime we had a fumble, it was always I always took responsibility. And I talked to that guy privately and say, hey, you pulled out too quick, and but you didn't snap it with integrity. You didn't wait for the hard count. You kind of caught me off guard. You've had it many times where you're changing the play at the line of scrimmage. You're walking up, and all of a sudden the ball's 6'12", and you're only 6'5", and it's like, oh crap, I got to go ahead and get this before they get it. But most important exchange in the course of a game is a center quarterback, and we do that before every practice, right? For 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Hey teammates, I want to tell you about a project we're working on with Youngstown State University. One of the ways Ellen and I have decided to give back is through the Tressel Institute for Leadership and Teamwork. We've collected a set of successful business and nonprofit leaders to serve as guest servant leaders in partnership with the Sokolov Honors College to teach university students teamwork, leadership, and personal skills. We teach from a foundation built on gratitude, excellence, hope, love, and selflessness. If you're a young person or parent helping to search for a unique college experience, you can learn more at tresselinstitute.ysu.edu or ysu.edu. Links will be provided in the show notes. So I think about the centers we had at Ohio State. My first one was LaCharles Bentley. Whew, he was a good one.
St. Ignatius.
Yep. Then Alex Stepanovich, Berea High School. Thank you. The Berea Braves.
Berea mid-part time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Then we had Nick Mangold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's 8-time Pro Bowler or whatever. Yep. He was from Bishop Alter down in Kettering, Ohio. And then we had Michael Brewster, who's offensive line coach now at the Washington Huskies. And then we had Corey Lindsley from Boardman High School, who you talk about You got a chance to win some games if you have centers like that. And one more I want to pick your brain till I get to the real topic I wanted to get on, okay? Packers, you were there with Favre, or he came and then you left?
I was with him for 3 weeks.
Okay.
3 weeks.
So, Packers, how many years? 3 years?
No, Packers, 1 year, 1.5, 18 months.
So who was the head coach?
Lindy Infante was there. He got fired with 2 weeks left in the season, but they kept him on for the last 2 games. And then they brought Mike Holmgren in the offseason. And along with that was a Steve Mariucci and John Gruden and Ray Rhodes and that whole San Francisco.
So give us a teammate from the Packers from that 18 months.
I'm sorry, I got to cut in with the Lindy Infante. Is that a 2-flip wide, short 60 wide option, X smash?
Wide stick,
All right.
No doubt. 2 home, hip wide, short fly, 470, whatever it was. Great teacher, great human being.
Oh, he was a legendary teacher.
Yeah, great teacher. The short time I was in Green Bay, there were so many things that weren't connected. They weren't connected. And I remember one of my first days at minicamp, and you'll appreciate this, Bernie, in Green Bay, the locker room was in the stadium, and it was just a square rectangle area, whatever, and I had to use the men's room. And at the time, there were 3 stalls and everything. And for a listening audience, I'll keep this clean and everything. So I squat to relieve myself and everything. I didn't check the toilet paper ring. Okay, so we go down, and I'm at a quandary right now. I got to make a decision. There's a guy in the first stall named Ron Holstrom from the University of Iowa. And I say, hey, my man, can you help a guy out down here? He goes, well, who's down there? He goes, it's Tomczak. He goes, oh, you're a former Chicago Bear. You suck. You got to figure it out on your own. Flush the toilet.
That's a good lesson in team, right?
He wasn't a great teammate. He wasn't a great teammate. But
at that moment, I'm sure he was other times.
Yeah, he was other times. There was, just for levity about the traditions, the Browns and Steelers and the Bears and the Packers and everything, Ohio State, Michigan. I was fortunate to play in all those great ones, and God has blessed me tremendously.
That's impressive to say that.
Amen.
Wow.
Amen.
Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. But Green Bay, there was a guy named Sterling Sharp.
Ooh. Yeah.
Sterling Sharp was a workaholic. He worked at his craft in the time I was there. Just independently, and like Jaleel did at YSU. The quiet hours when no one's watching, when the lights are out, when it's dark out. He was putting in those countless hours of just perfecting his craft. And finally, he got into the Hall of Fame, I believe. Right?
Sure did.
So he was the guy that he got to know me because I played a lot. Mikowski got hurt, and I ended up playing.
Magic Man.
Yeah. I ended up playing 12 games in that 1991 season. And we played against the Bears. We beat the Bears 1 out of 2 times. So that was serendipitous of going back home and you suck, Tomczak. You were just praising me, for the last 6 years. But it was a blessing. Sterling was very humble.
So now let's get to the quarterback position, and for our viewers that are blessed to have a position of responsibility, I think whenever you have a position of responsibility, like a quarterback or like a supervisor or like a CEO or like anyone that's got a little bit more responsibility and can serve and impact the others, what's key about playing that position, I don't care if it's high school, college, or pro, that you learned that quarterback has to be to have a great team?
So when you were saying the Bill Curry stories under the great Bear Bryant at University of Kentucky, another teammate guy was Howard Snellenberger under that era and followed that same lineage and stuff. And that type of guy had that type of mindset on us that really epitomized how we should act.
How the quarterback should.
How the quarterback should act.
Well, he wrote a great quarterback book.
Yeah, and what he said to me was, because, again, I'm quarterbacks. Even here, I want to represent them cool. I want to represent them extroverted, that I'm very confident. But the truth is, I'm introverted, shy, a little bit on the spectrum, and at times don't necessarily, especially when I was young, not necessarily want to be vocal, not want to be decisive. And Coach Stellenberger very clearly said, well, then you'll never play for me, okay? And for him to be saying and teaching you that you have to know, you have to believe. And he goes, I'm going to coach you so good that you will be my coach in that huddle. And you will know it better than me, and you're in charge of doing that. And then you have to translate that to your 10 guys like that, because to believe, again, is to be strong. And that belief he showed in me, you need to show in the other guys. And that started giving me the confidence to actually not be that shy little boy, not be that introverted guy. And then again, we all want to have 100% certainty in decisions, but heck, when you guys know, when we're in that huddle, it's one thing, but when you're in the pocket, it's not always cut and dry 100%.
You don't have time. It's too late if you wait till it's 100%, right?
Yeah.
You got to let it go before that.
Yeah, so having a conviction, having a belief, and then making the best analysis, and for him to kind of put that pressure on you and then believe that you could actually do it, that started really growing within me on it.
One of the things we talked about when Mike was a quarterback, and I talked about with quarterbacks my whole career, was that quarterback can never show discouragement regardless of what's going on, and he's got to have that, when they look in your eyes, just like Howard,
Believe.
they've got to see the belief.
You
right?
got to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And
Same
believe
thing
you
with
know
the
what to do.
supervisor, same thing with the CEO, same thing with anyone who has that blessing of responsibility. Michael, what is it?
Humility comes to mind.
Yeah.
It really does. And back in 1983, I needed to be humbled. I got booed out of Ohio Stadium in 1982 after we lost to the Stanford Cardinals and John Elway. 3 consecutive games in a row, Florida State, Stanford, and I didn't play in the Wisconsin game. But I remember that feeling of walking off the field and hearing those boos after the Stanford game. And there was a pack of 10 people, my family was saying, yeah, he's all right, he's not bad anyway. But Earl called me in his office, and I don't know if you weren't privy because you weren't there yet.
I wasn't there, but I was told the story.
Earl said that, Michael, if you start the Wisconsin game and we lose, this is the first time in Ohio State history that 3 games were lost in a row in Ohio Stadium. You'll never play another down for Ohio State. And it really cut to the core. It pierced my heart. Because I was a team guy. I'll show you. I'm a competitor. I want to be the guy. Brent Offenbecker is no better than me. I can go out there and do it. Well, we ended up losing the game 6-0 in the rain in Ohio Stadium. So 3 in a row. We play Illinois the next week.
You didn't play, so
I didn't play. Yeah, I didn't
Earl
play.
was
real adamant.
Brilliant.
That is brilliant, man. Not knowing that, man, to have played in a rainy, miserable game, too.
I didn't play, I'm sitting there and sulking, so that was my feeling. Gray skies, rain.
Yeah.
I'm out there with my teammates. So, that Monday he said, from now on we're going to meet every Monday morning for the rest of the season. You're going to guide this team to a Big Ten championship. You're going to get us on a run. I'm going to insert you against Illinois. I'm going back to my, home state, university, playing the Illinois Fighting Illini with Mike White as the head coach and
good team. Illinois was good.
Tony Eason is the quarterback and everything, or Jack Trudeau, one of the two. But yeah, it was one of those things where you had to be humbled. You thought you're playing at a big university, things are going okay and everything, then you fall off the ladder. But the quarterbacks, it's feast or famine sometimes. It's feast or famine. And you have to be the guy that stands up, whether you're in the corporate world, whether you're in the educational world, to know that sometimes it's not who's right, but what's right. And when you realize that, the humility behind that is so true. It's what's right for the greater good of the team. In a corporate setting, I'm in business now, so I have, sales guys all around the country, and it's tough to humble them because we're not all part of the same huddle. They're dispersed in different areas, so it's communication and everything. But, back to 83, I remember you come in and say, hey, I've been studying your 82 season, and everything. And if you can eliminate 6 turnovers a season, we're going to be that much better. And it was another voice. Same message.
So let me build
voice.
on that. Since you had the willingness to bring up the restroom in a story, I'm going to bring up a story to build on exactly what you're saying. Michael's exactly right. We studied that film of every throw he made in 82 and so forth, and they were what they were, and a lot of great ones. And he had finished the season, big bowl victory and all that kind of stuff. But it wasn't perfect, as you talked about. And we kind of hone in on where we can get better. So we were having these good conversations, and I thought they were good. And so go to the restroom down at the end of St. John Arena where our offices were. And then there were two stand-up ones. I wasn't in the sit-down one, okay? And I'm standing there, and Earl comes in, and he's standing at the other one, and Earl says to me, "Hey, you got to be nicer to Tomczak." I'm like, what do you mean, Coach? I'm just here going to the restroom. You got to be nicer to Tomczak. I said, you know what? I think we're going to be okay, but we have to be truthful where we need to get better. And we have to be humble, and truly one of the things that a leader who wants to be part of a team, well, then from that point on, he was like, and you did mention the broken leg. I'll never forget, he had a great year in '83, and then we were getting ready for '84, and great spring. I forget, we charted everything. We did data on everything, we studied everything. He had one interception out of like 1,000 throws in spring practice, and it was Hail Mary. We practiced Hail Mary, and so he had to throw it up in the end zone, and it bounced around, and they intercepted. So he had one, and so, he was ready to be the Heisman Trophy winner, in my mind. Well, we're in the spring game, and he ends up breaking his leg. I won't get into the whole story, but he ends up spiral fracture, breaking his leg, and they're telling us we're not going to have him for '84. He's not going to. We were ready to really be good. I've never seen anyone, not just because he's here, I've never seen anyone rehab 8-10 hours a day like this guy, in the swimming pool, in this, in that, and wasn't quite ready for the first game, and we did okay. We won, and we were getting ready to play Washington State, or who were we getting ready? Washington State.
Mark Rippon.
And Mark Rippon. They had a good team. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, Mike Tomczak's ready to come back, and man, Ohio Stadium can get exciting. That was one of the most exciting moments when all of a sudden he came back and he had this big fiberglass brace on his leg, around his thing, and
those boos turned into cheers really quickly.
They did.
From 82 to 84.
82 to, but you know what? A leader has to understand. You have to have the humility. You got to fight through when it's not perfect. You got to figure out what you need to do better. You can't be afraid to look in the mirror and say, where do I need to get better? And so let's talk about today's No, let me go back. Quarterbacks that you were around in the NFL. Like, I know as a coach, I read and studied about other coaches, right? Who did you study, Bernie? Or who did you learn something from afar that you thought, man, that's an impressive tidbit that I can learn from that quarterback?
So being a University of Miami, Howard Snellenberger type guy who was the godfather of kind of my system, he was the offensive coordinator for the only undefeated 1972 Miami Dolphins under Don Shula. So it was really the Don Shula offense that was a morphing together of Don Shula with the Paul Brown and the Bear Bryant with Howard Snellenberger, the evolution of the convergence of that offense. So now I'm in Cleveland running Marty's offense after learning that, watching what Coach Shula and Dan Marino were doing from the shotgun. So that really helped me then with Lindy in the next year and Fonte kind of evolving my game. But at the time, I did not know how important and for young quarterbacks and for life lessons and maybe where the position is going, did not really realize, and I talked earlier, the magnitude and importance of Marty Schottenheimer and the run game. And when you integrate that Don Shula, Howard Snellenberger offense with kind of, I've given Marty Schottenheimer the credit for it, but that type of running mentality with that integration of it, I loved that, had good success with it. I now wish, though, to the Ron Earharts, to what's going on today in some of the Kyle Shanahan type systems, where and the Boomer Esiason ended up doing it with some of the play action. Peyton Manning was a master at play action. You were exceptional at it. I was poor at it. So I was under the old school quarterbacks that taught me, always look down the field, always keep your eyes up. The play action school, you had to have an art and a confidence to sell the fake. Take your eyes down off to sell it, and then look back up. Mike was really good at that.
That's because Earl made him reverse pivot.
Yeah, I wasn't. So I had a hard time picking up on that. Some of our older school guys, and when I'm working with younger quarterbacks, I would love what Mike does now.
Yeah.
Being able to handle the balance of, you can't be in shotgun all the time now. You got to handle, you got to get that snap under there. You got to know when the center's reaching, and you got to run with that. That happens today. And embrace the play action running game. And that kind of convergence of that is.
How about today's quarterbacks? I know you guys stay tuned in. You know, you're NFL alumni, so you go back and see your teams, and you're asked to get on TV sometimes. And you know what? Let's talk about today's NFL quarterbacks and what you think you've seen from them, and what they do well, and not only just the physical part, but the aura that they carry. Anyone come to mind, Michael?
Well, Tom Brady obviously is the elite of the elite, right? I mean, he's got the rings to prove it, and he perfected his craft throughout his tenured career. You know, two critical things that I see. Number one is A-gap integrity at the quarterback position.
Tell the viewers what A-gap is.
Well, there are 9 gaps, or I should say there are 8 gaps, you know, A, B, C, and D going to the right from the center. A, B, C, and D going to the left of the center.
It's the gap between the center and the guard and the tackle, so forth.
There you go, the teacher.
I'm a teacher. You know, I never played in the NFL, but I can teach. Go ahead.
That's why I listened to him. He was my mentor, one of the dearest and best. And the A-gap integrity, a lot of times quarterbacks, whether it be at the high school level and the college level, they think their athleticism will get them out of the pocket. And as soon as they separate the pocket, being from the A-gap integrity, the left hand comes off the football. You know, like they're sprinting and everything. And I was always taught to squeeze your shoulders or squeeze your elbows together. You know, when you're getting ready to get out of the pocket, squeeze your shoulders together. That's going to keep the ball secure and everything. So I see that as a flaw. A lot of times, even in the NFL, their left hand will come off. You don't know where the defensive end is. You don't know when you have to get released to the pocket.
Strip sack, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And then from A-gap integrity, and then also footwork. I think footwork is a lost art because, again, we're doing that read stuff, and sometimes they're off balance. And these guys change at different levels. You had a different level of release point. You know, you were a little bit lower instead of over the top like we were taught to pronate your thumb down. But footwork, A-gap integrity at all levels, quarterbacks need to work on. The guys that I really think are very good are the guys that buy into the play action. I thought Steve DeBerg and Joe Montana were extremely good at their craft. And I used to study Steve DeBerg and Joe Montana. You know, just that.
And a little extra,
and it takes both of us. It takes the running back not to run away with a pickup of responsibility. Well, let's go through the action first. You know if he's coming. You know if he's blitzing, and that's your responsibility. So give me a good, you know, commit to it. Be accountable for it. And that sells everything. In college, as JT mentioned earlier, Earl Bruce had us, we ran the Dave, split backs, we ran Dave, down, pull and everything. And he would make my back turn to the line of scrimmage, you know, and then I have to find a free safety. And I would just get in arguments, and I'd come to you and say, why can't we just open up? And I'd get my head back around and find a free safety and everything like that. He goes, Michael, we're here to affect the will linebacker. And we run 84 wide shallow. We got it underneath. We're flooding the zone. We got the dig coming in behind. I'm the coach. We got a fullback right here on the D gap. We got a running back inside on the A gap and everything. He goes, you just do what you're taught. And I'm zip it.
Speaking of 84 wide shallow, how many times did you run 84 wide shallow in the championship game when you beat Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Remember, because you came and lectured to our team back at YSU. Again, this is 100 years ago. And you were up on the board, And you told us how many times you did the
You
Y
run
shot.
that cross
Yeah.
because
Right.
and the separation and spreads isn't an accident, and how you have to affect the defensive players.
Yeah.
You know, you ask about like for young quarterbacks and stuff to the beautiful points you're both mentioning, but athleticism and human nature really take effect. And just like we're being respectful here, looking at each other in the eyes and stuff, as quarterbacks, you know, when you're playing, you really don't want to look down. You don't want to look in each other's eyes. You want to look through that mic, through that safety. So in the heat of the battle, in the pocket here, it's human nature that the defensive end, Mike Tomczak here, is about to clear me out.
Yep.
And it's easier said than done to keep the discipline and have the toughness to keep going down field and opening up, knowing you're going to get wiped out, to throw that square in or that Y shallow. If the will sucks up on it, it's got to come. So being able to not drop down, or if you got to run, keeping your head up, because once you drop down and then try to throw.
That's what Mahomes does so well, right? I mean, his eyeballs are down that field when the play breaks down.
And even
up,
when
eyes
he's
up.
paused, and to Mike's good point, squeezing the elbow, so you don't run up in the pocket, you slide up in the pocket and head up, so you could still see. I see the holes right there. I don't need to look down. So Mahomes is exceptional. Looking down here, you could still hit the check downs, and you could run with
You know,
it.
another great point too about these young high school, college, or professional quarterback is body language. You know, you're highly
Same
competitive.
thing for a supervisor or a CEO.
Yeah.
Body language,
or,
right?
or even an employee.
Employee, yeah.
You bring somebody in for a review and everything, they're leaving the office like this and they're ready for a promotion, you know, and then that frown turns to, you know, erect. And my dad always said, you know, that kid needs a good swift kick in the rear end because it's going to straighten his back up, right? So I think, you know, body language is extremely important at the quarterback position, managerial position, even a teacher. You know, a lot of times we'll, you know, discouragement at a young age when a teacher really frowns upon, you're not studying, you're not good enough, you're not going to be a good student, you're not going to be a good athlete, you're not going to be a good human being. You know, that little mentor in that classroom, whether it be 5th grade or 6th grade, can demoralize somebody from their growth potential. And it just...
One of the great lessons I learned as a college president trying to raise money, you'd go around and you'd find people obviously that did well, and you'd ask them, how did you do well? You know, what was the key? And inevitably they'd say it was this faculty member, or it was this coach, or it was this mentor who made me believe I could. Right?
So true.
And I'm sure it was in body language and in message and in belief and in compassion and all these things, you know, that we've talked about. And so last question for you guys. And so you were a freshman in what, 82?
81.
81. When were you a freshman at Miami?
82.
Okay, so you're the old guy. You're going first. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks? You only get 4.
Yeah, you only get 4.
I want to make sure you
That's
passed history. You knew there were 4 up there.
That's a
on the mountain.
common thing because I saw this recently. Jack Nicklaus was asked the same question.
really? Okay.
He was asked the same question, and he, you know, went to, you know, Bobby Jones and this guy and Tiger Woods, and he goes, "Oh, I might want to put myself up there." So I'm not going to put myself up there. But since Bernie's sitting next to me, just for your viewing audience, he would be the 5th guy.
Okay, 5th guy. Okay, all right.
I think Bart Starr. Bart Starr.
One of my heroes. Yeah.
Bart Starr. You know, as much as
Tell him who Bart Starr is.
Bart Starr was a four-time
World champ. Yeah,
four-time
probably.
world champ and everything. Former head coach of the Green Bay Packers. Just a wonderful human being. Was impactful. You know, watching him when the first Super Bowl in 1967 when it came to the television and everything. Yeah. So watching him lead his team. There's a guy named Johnny Unitas. Johnny Unitas was a great quarterback in the 70s for the Baltimore Colts and former Pittsburgh Steeler draftee that got cut and then went to Baltimore. Just his way of doing things. Very unorthodox way, a little bit like Bernie, you know, with his drop and everything, but the black high tops and everything.
But let me pause you on Johnny, because we brought that style and all that kind of thing up. I always felt as a quarterback evaluator that I didn't care about what their motion looked like. Okay. I just cared about the results. Yeah. You know, because everyone looks differently, and
I was super blessed. My first quarterback coach at University of Miami was the great Earl Morrill. And I wanted to throw overhand. I just couldn't throw a spiral overhand. It just didn't spin right. So,
but your results were better when you did it that way.
When I was throwing sidearm, I go, Coach, it doesn't look like Vinny Testaverde. I didn't look good. And he goes, look, ultimately, he goes, you need to get it accurate on time, and I won't complain.
Right.
Okay.
And the more I teach these kids, I'm not going to change their motion when they're 16, 18 years old or anything, because they've done it 10,000 reps. Yeah. Because in the heat of the battle, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to your comfort zone, whatever delivery.
Our star, Johnny Unitas.
Johnny Unitas, Joe Montana, and Tom Brady.
All right. Why Joe Montana?
Why not?
Well, no.
Joe Montana, he was a leader.
Yep.
He was tough. He was gritty, precise, almost like a surgeon. When he would run that West Coast offense and everything, just checking the checkdowns, little checkdowns.
Hank. They threw it. When in doubt, throw Hank.
And clutch at the end when you needed it at
and you knew they believed in him. He never showed discouragement. It didn't matter.
Piercing blue eyes when we think about the huddle, just looking around at Dwight Clark and Jerry Rice and those guys and Roger Craig, to know that, hey, we're cool. His nickname was Boo. For some reason.
Boo.
Yeah, I don't know why. Jonathan Hayes, the tight end, played with them and got to know him at Kansas City, and they call him Boo and everything. But Montana always had that flair he was just calm. Even if the wind was blowing off of Candlestick Park, he was so calm. And that, there was a great coach that mentored me for 2 off seasons, Pete McCulley. And Pete McCulley was a quarterback coach during Bill Kenny's run in Kansas City. And Pete would always say, come here. And sometimes a quarterback needs to have a deaf left ear. A deaf left ear from all the noise, all the people that want to be the quarterback coach, and have that positive right ear. And Pete McCulley was a guy in my career that I needed to seek out, and by the grace of God, I was introduced to him. But he would always say, get over here. He goes, I want you to stand up there like a warrior. You're a gladiator. You put that square back up. You put that chest. You get in that huddle. You get that look and everything. Don't be cocky. Just be confident. Don't be cocky. And he would be over and over again. And we had this.
That's it for the young Qs, though.
Yeah, just that armor, just that presence.
I'm ready to go now.
Yeah. and he had this different way of training me, from a drop back position. That old extra genie, for people don't know, back in the 70s, they had this.
There's no one watching that will remember an extra genie. There's no one that old.
Well, he took it and got a rope, and we attached it to my belt, and we'd do drops and drops and drops, and it would be my cardiovascular work. And then we get on the bike and everything, listening to Norman Vincent Peale about positive mental approach to life and everything, over and over again, so that repetition. So I tell you what, if you're going to be a quarterback, you better have that armor, that presence, because you can't walk into a huddle. I remember walking into a huddle after the starter got hurt, and I carried that in there. Because to me, as a backup, you're one play away, and you got to have no drop off. I don't want. The only time I had a drop off in my play calling was when Todd Philcox got hurt in the third quarter when I just joined the Browns. And I went over to Gary Tranquil and I said, hey, here's my 12 plays I like. I was only there for 3 days. And the first 4 passes were checkdowns to Eric Metcalf.
Sounds like when I went to Dallas to Emmitt Smith.
Yeah. And Mark Bavaro on a spot route over the ball. And Michael Jackson on a fade route. That's all I needed,
All right, you're Mount Rushmore, Bern.
So I can't argue with any of that, but
you got to have your own.
I got to add Otto Graham. To the.
So who are you taking off?
So
we're not making it easy on you. So you only get 4.
I I had the Johnny Unitas. Ernie Accorsi was the general manager who drafted me, and I ended up with 19 because he thought I reminded him of that.
Right.
So
great story.
So was.
So you got Unitas and Otto Graham. Tell the viewers who Otto Graham was.
So for Otto Graham, I'm so blessed, with 2 Browns quarterbacks here, and people saying that, people are saying I was one of the best quarterbacks. I'm here saying Mike was better, and neither one of us was the best. Otto Graham was. Okay, so Otto won more championships than just about probably any quarterback out there, with the great Paul Brown and stuff. So what he did, and you talk about today's quarterback, and what today's quarterback is, I was a drop back, slow pocket quarterback. Otto Graham could throw it, sling it, and he had athleticism, and that's what today's QBs really have. They're able to run, have athleticism.
All right, so you got Unitas and Graham. You only get 4.
So because I'm still personally scarred from John Elway, he's, that's a daily reflexive point on me. I could just barely fly into Denver right now and go to the Elway Steakhouse, which is there. And then because I really looked up to Joe Montana too, and Bill Walsh and what they were doing. So
I said that was the last question, but I have one more.
Well, Bernie and I telepathy is going on here. Who's your 4 for Mount Rushmore?
Well, I'm the question asker.
Well, yeah, okay, but sometimes
I'm the coach.
I'm audible right now. We're allowed to audible.
Tomczak, Kosar,
Brungard,
Mark Brungard,
and Troy Smith.
Troy Smith. There we go. Mount Rushmore. Your Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks that are playing today in the NFL. You have to go first this time because you got to go first last time.
Yeah,
that are playing today.
Tell you, the quarterbacks today. I mean,
I'm
proud of how we played in our era, and we had a good run.
Yeah, it was a good
Boy, we
run,
have a good run today, right now. So,
get 4.
And here we are in Ohio. I love Ohio. We talk about the Browns, Steelers. You got the Browns, Bengals, the Battle of Ohio. God, Joe Burrow is top tier. How could you not say Patrick Mahomes?
Okay.
Josh Allen is just exceptional in terms of, his dominance right there. So that's 3 right off the top right there.
All right, you need a 4th.
So now the 4th, I'm kind of thinking off the top of my
head. All right, hold it at 3.
Yeah.
You're Mount Rushmore.
Well, Lamar.
Oh, and Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar.
See, that's what's tough in our division right now. The Steelers are always the Steelers. They got Aaron Rodgers, and they've got Lamar Jackson and a loaded
and
Baltimore. And Joe Burrow is at such a level that it's
All right, you got Lamar.
Yeah, Lamar's taking that game to another level. I remember playing against Randall Cunningham and Michael Vick, and to see the elusivity of these guys in the pocket that really extend the width of the field to defend him. So Lamar, Mahomes, obviously, Josh Allen, and I haven't seen enough of Joe Burrow other than the fact that he's gotten to the Super Bowl and everything. I want to see more because he's the complete answer. I mean, he's durable. He often injured to some degree. There's a kid that's tough for the San Diego Chargers. The kid that stands
Justin Herbert.
Yeah. He stands in there, like I talked about, that, like that gladiator, and he knows that A-gap integrity and everything. And some people say, what about Aaron Rodgers? Well, his time has come and gone, I think. But the new breed of quarterbacks, those 4, I would say Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, and the kid out San Diego. The kid at
Justin.
Justin, yeah.
So let's wrap it up. Why don't you look right in the camera, Bernie, and give us one last thought to remind all of us that it's all about the team.
I kind of live with do the best you can today. Tomorrow takes care of itself. Came from Coach Snellenberger. And selfless acts, to believe in yourself is to be strong. So I always challenge people and myself every day, do the best I can today. Don't get caught up in the peripheral. And tomorrow takes care of itself.
Michael?
Yeah.
Last thought.
Yeah, last thought. There's a word called greed that kind of filters into our mindset. I said earlier that you are your thoughts, and you become your thoughts. And greed is kind of like the Antichrist, if you will, for demise in many areas, your spiritual life, your personal life, your professional life. So I really, really try to make sure that greed does not penetrate my bloodstream. Kindness is kind of the antidote for that. And as long as you realize that I'm only as good as the people that I work with, that I can stem from that I can grow from that, because I want to know, you don't know what's going on in somebody else's life. You truly don't on a daily basis. There's a big facade sometimes that people put up, that mask, the persona, that everything is good. People ask you sometimes, how you doing today? Oh, good. And that conversation's over. I used to hear my dad say, people say, hey, Coach, how you doing today? He goes, not good. not good. And it pauses people.
Right.
It pauses people. So I use that, even at Youngstown State with the players. Coach, how you doing today? I said, not good, not good. He goes, why? I said, I didn't sleep much at all. I said, you missed that block, an easy block. It's a fundamental we went over and everything, and I can't sleep anymore. But if you do that, it'll make my day a lot better. Just that little bit. So that's, greed, it's a plague. It's a plague in the corporate world. People, it's a plague in politics, that people think their agenda is the right agenda. And I said earlier, it's not who's right, but what's right. And I remember Chan Gailey saying that when it came to a quarterback decision or a play call. Mike, there's some great minds in those offensive meetings and everything. And, even though this play I drew up, it wasn't the offensive coordinator's play, and that's where the greed comes in. And you've had that in staff meetings, I'm sure, educationally and collegiately.
There's no question. Until the next time, we learned a lot from these two. It's all about the team.